Hello, welcome to False from Mine, whatever time of day it is. You might be watching this in the morning, you might be sitting there with your bacon and eggs, you might be sitting there of an evening watching me, whatever. Usual little bit of housekeeping. Please don't forget to like, comment on and share this stream to your social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and make sure you hit that bell icon and you'll be alerted of any new content as and when we upload it to the channel. As always, we thank you very much indeed for your support. And speaking of support, please consider giving your support to the Iron Supporting Food Banks charity. They're a very, very worthwhile cause. They operate in the Newham Borough area, and they try to do their best to put food onto the plates of families that have fallen on stony ground in this cost of living crisis. Some families can't withstand the struggles of modern life the way that you or I can, and this charity is doing all they can to support them in this particular time. So there is the Just Giving link. Please go to it. Please put some money in the pot, and you will be doing a great service, I can assure you. And as always, we thank you very much indeed for your attention. So why are you watching me rambling on? Well, you are here for episode 1, which is something of a trial that we're doing. So hopefully this goes well. This is called Mount Matty Rushmore. Mount Matty Rushmore, you say? Yeah, well, you've heard of the monument that's in the United States called Mount Rushmore. It's, if you don't know what it is, allow me to fill in the blanks. It's basically a mountain that you've got 4 heads of presidents of the United States of America that have been carved into it. So my question is, if you were selecting your Mount Rushmore of West Ham United or Mount Matty Rushmore, you see what we've done there? Any of you paying attention? Then who would those 4 be? You can only pick 4 players out of the entire history of West Ham United. You have to have seen them play to some degree or other. So if I was doing it, I couldn't pick Bobby Moore, for instance. And basically, we want you to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and give the reasons why. Now, I appreciate there are probably going to be some people watching this that might turn around and say, well, Rob, there's someone else that does a fairly similar thing called My Hammers 11, and that man's Russ Budden. So you not kind of nicking his idea? Well, funnily enough, I actually asked him that very question, and for that reason, he's on for the first episode. So there you go. Russ, how are you doing, mate?
Very well, very well. Yeah, my lawyers have been in touch.
Well, listen, I could always try and sort of smooth the wheels by, I don't know, maybe a pint. Mind you, at £7.60, it probably wouldn't be in the London Stadium.
Yeah, maybe not, mate. Give it a couple more weeks, and it might be down another 20. Might be down another 20p by then.
Ooh,
no, it's all good. It's all good.
So
very well.
Good. Well, Russ, I'm really pleased that you've been able to take time out of your busy schedule to help the channel out with this interesting little concept. As I say, you stop and think about, and obviously I reference your My Hammers 11, which obviously I've taken part in. Yeah. And I kind of thought this is kind of similar, but not quite, because you're not necessarily picking an 11. You're not necessarily saying, okay, he's the right back, he's the goalkeeper, he's the striker, whatever. This is literally you going, this is my 4 bang, 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 who I would put on the side of a mountain if I had one to carve them into.
Very nice. If you have a mountain, very impressive.
It would. Have you got one in your back garden?
Do you know what? That's the one thing that isn't on, that Mrs. Budden hasn't somehow got a man in to do.
She'll watch this and she will have an idea now.
I'm one of those people. She'll say, "Oh, that wall needs painting. I'll get a man in for that." But if their Wi-Fi goes down, I'm the first bugger they get in. They'll phone me up at work. Or via the Ring doorbell. That's a new thing at the moment, the Ring doorbell. Oh,
we got one of those.
Oh.
The little chime that goes off on your mobile every 20 seconds when a cat walks past.
There's been movement. Oh, who is it? No one.
Yeah, it's a packet of crisps that's just been blown past.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. But no, I mean, just so that people are clear, you can put who you want on the side of this mountain. Yeah. That's the thing. It might be something that's quite personal to you. It might be that you I don't wish to pick on anyone, but let's say for reasons best known to yourself, you turned around and said, I'd like to carve the head of Jonathan Spector into the side of this particular cliff face. Now, most West Ham fans, let's be completely honest about it, nicer fellow though Jonathan Spector might be, could turn around and go, well, he's not one of our best players of all time. But you could turn around and go, I know that, but I met him once in a car park of a shopping centre, and he was a really nice guy. He was very engaging with my kids.
Exactly.
And I found out he did a lot of good work for charity in the local area. And you could turn around for that and go, I'm putting him in.
And he scored those 2 goals against Man United.
Well, there is that. That's an added bonus.
Prime for that one game. He was prime Iniesta.
He was,
wasn't he?
He was. Don't you ever go at Jonathan Spector. No. He's got those 2 goals until forever. Indeed. So there you go. Okay, Russ. Well, if you would like to get cracking on with this one, 4 players that you would carve into the side of a mountain for varying reasons, and you can explain them as you go along.
Yep.
So who would be the first?
Well, I feel I better preface this as well, because I think I like, and it's, I appreciate this is going to be hopefully a long running series, and there'll be lots of people coming on with maybe different things, and there may be some similarities. So I thought, you know what, rather than go similar, I'll go a little bit out there. So at least the next episode is going to be different. So I was saying to Gatesy, I actually came up with 4 different lists based on different criteria. Could have gone with my favorite players, could have gone with my academy list. This is just some ideas for other people as well. Academy list for the Mount Rushmore. I think I did hard men, silky players, but I thought what I'd do is I want to do one which is my cult heroes. So my West Ham cult heroes. That's the sort of the preface. So 4 players, not necessarily, the ones that were grabbing all the goals, but the 4 that I really, really enjoyed. And I could have included, and spoiler alert, I could have included Julian Dix and people like that, but I think he's more of a good, my sort of best players rather than necessarily cult heroes. So that's what we do. So the first man is the man I believe has the second highest number of yellow cards in West Ham history after Mark Noble. I believe it's over 60. He's here, he's there, it's everywhere. It's John Bloody Moncur. 64 bookings, 3 sendings off, and 9 goals in almost over 200 games for the club. What a man! What a man!
He was. I remember John Moncur playing myself, and I remember one goal, and I'm fairly sure it was the 5-4 game against Bradford. He got the opener, didn't he? And it was from about, 20, 30 yards. He took the shot, and it almost looked like he was falling over, if I remember rightly, as he was taking the shot. He was sort of like slipping back, but he caught this ball, and it went flying past. I think it was Matt Clark that was in goal, if I remember correctly, in the Bradford City goal. And he was a fantastic player. We got him from Swindon Town, as I remember, who was under the tutelage of someone that he readily admits was a hero of his. Which was Glenn Hoddle. Now I know people might recoil at that and go, but he's Spurs. Well, Glenn Hoddle was a special player, in fairness, so it's completely understandable.
And 2 points. One being he scored that goal. That Bradford City goal, and then the next break of play he gave away a penalty.
Typical John Moncur.
That's what I mean. Typical John Moncur. I've been fortunate enough to interview him and met him several times, and it's a great interview actually. Because obviously since retiring he found God, and is a born again Christian. But when I interviewed him, that glint was back in his eye. It was like all like quite just normal, because obviously he's a very good golfer as well. He's in his golfing gear, talking about the football, and then we started talking about the time at West Ham, and it was almost like regression therapy. It was almost going back, and then and there was this one time and this one time where I turned up naked, and it was like and this one time at band camp, and he just went on this verbal diarrhea. It was absolutely brilliant. But he spoke about obviously Swindon, because Swindon went down. And Glenn Hoddle then moved to Chelsea, and basically it's between us and Chelsea. He wanted take John to Chelsea, and potentially, eventually then he got the England job, didn't he? So who would have known? You could have had John put on the Three Lions if he'd gone to Chelsea, maybe in a weird sliding doors moment.
Parallel universe.
Exactly, but he stayed at West Ham and he signed the same day as Joey Beecham.
Most of the stories that revolve around John Moncur away from the pitch involve him being naked.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
And maybe in a pair of socks and a football boots, but that's about it.
He does get naked quite a lot by all accounts, talking to ex-players about John Moncur around that time. He did get naked quite a bit. And I sort of respect that. I respect that because, particularly those cold days in December at Chadwell Heath.
Yeah.
You ain't going to be showing much.
Been doing that, yeah.
Yeah, you ain't going to be showing much, to be honest. And but I remember him saying he was into, because one of the famous ones was when he ran out when Sky was there, and ran out completely naked. I think he did a Klinsmann mudslide.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
And he just said to Harry, "Well, I haven't got no kit." And from then on, he always had kit. And then obviously when he started, he was a fantastic player, very skillful. And then towards the end of his career, it became sort of the cult hero status. He was always on the bench and he'd run along. And again, in today's world, you wouldn't be able to do what he was doing. But I remember several times he ran behind the female linesman, sort of jockeying them, and do it. We couldn't, obviously that's not right now, but in that situation everyone would go, hey, but nowadays everyone go, no, you can't do it now, John. But he was part of that sort of real funny time at West Ham where there was a sort of a transition between a team mainly of English players to a team of really random foreigners to then a team of very good foreigners by the end, the likes of Slaven Bilic, Mark Reaper, and people like that. So and he was there for 9 seasons. I think 9 seasons he was there, and actually probably even 10. I think 3, 4, 5, 9 seasons, and was just one of those players who, and what I liked was he retired at the end, so it wasn't like he went somewhere else and maybe turned up for Dagenham and Redbridge, where he, his time was there and he retired, and also part of the Intertoto Cup success as well.
Yes,
part of our best ever Premier League season as well. So he did the rounds. He did the rounds at West Ham, and I love him.
And you mentioned there about foreign players, and there was, I remember, around about, I think it might have been about 96. And if you remember better than I, and it was different, then let me know. But I'm fairly sure it was around about 96, 97 season when Harry started bringing in Paolo Futre, Ilie Dumitrescu, Florin Radicchoi. And of course, the story was, and that involved John Moncur, was that we went to Highbury, which was obviously where Arsenal were playing at the time. And obviously John Moncur had worn the number 10 up to that point. And Harry gave Paolo Futre a number which wasn't the number 10, which was what he was obviously associated with all his career. And the story goes, he stormed out of Highbury, and then there was I believe subsequently there was something of a, let's get round the table, and John Moncur and Paolo Futre, I believe, agreed to exchange squad numbers. And I think, and you might know better than I heard something that as a sort of bit of a sweetener in the deal for Paolo Futre to get the number 10 is that I think John Moncur had a bit of time over in Paolo Futre's villa or something. Yeah, in
Portugal. He got a two-week free holiday in Portugal. And obviously Paolo Futre recently, just been in hospital, hasn't he? He's recovering from heart surgery. But that was a story. Who was, I think John mentioned it. I think someone else mentioned it as well. Can't remember who else we spoke to about it. But it's the same. Yeah, might be Steve Jones. I mean, Jonah mentioned it, but that's what happened, and as you said, it was a number 16 shirt he was given, and Paolo Futre 10, Eusebio, Pele, Futre 10, Moncur 10. That's what happened. And but again, that just adds to the story. John didn't really give a shit what number he played. No. He was just winding him up. He wound him up and said, "No, I want to pay 10," and he stormed off. And
wow. How precious players can be over squad numbers. It's quite incredible, isn't it?
I think it's a foreign thing. I think it's foreign players, because it's like nowadays you look at look at some of the players that have come in like Gianluca Scamacca.
Yep.
He's 99. That's the number he's played for Sassuolo. But now he's number 7. And the various other players who come in, it's like, Emerson, obviously, he's going to be wearing number 33. That was his number anyway. But yeah, they do seem to be very precious on their numbers. I mean, Messi moved to PSG and obviously took on his first number at Barcelona rather than necessarily the 10, because, someone's already got that over there. So yeah, it's funny how they associate numbers on their shirts. I remember the Inter Milan strikers, Ivan Zamorano. Yeah, and he was always number 9, I think. And then he used to have a 9, and he used to literally put a little cross and then put a 1. So he'd have 91. He wore 9 plus 8, 1 plus 8. 1 plus 8, that's it.
Because it was when I actually know this. This was when Inter Milan signed Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo. And Zamorano, who was already at Inter Milan, had worn number 9 the previous season. Yeah. But obviously, Ronaldo, star signing, obviously, at the time they signed him, he hadn't won the World Cup. Obviously, he later did.
Yes,
but 1+8, yeah. He then wore what I remember, because they played in a Champions League match at Old Trafford in the season that Manchester United did the treble in 98-99 season. And Zamorano wore 1 plus 8, and I remember Clive Tildesley on commentary mentioning it was because he wanted the number 9. They gave it to Ronaldo, so he went, okay, I'll wear 1 plus 8 then. 9.
Love it. So funny.
So weird, the other thing also about John Moncur that I think is also overlooked is, like you say, he was with us for 9 seasons. I mean, he came to us for £1 million, which in that time of 1994 was an awful lot of money. But you sort of think, well, he gave 9 years service, and all right, maybe didn't play the amount of games that you think someone whose tenure was 9 years long should have played. But that kind of he like you say, he was cool with that. He was fine doing what he did at the latter end of his career, where he was like maybe not such an important cog in the machine, but he still came on to good effect. He was absolutely fine. I mean, he was a very, very underrated player, in my opinion. Yeah,
I mean, him and another player we're going to talk about later, them as a central pairing. I remember, I think it was the other gentleman was mentioning, it might be Monks actually. No, it was John when we interviewed him. Obviously, they were playing against Vieira, Keane, big, strong midfielders. And John went, we'd eat them for breakfast. I was going to run through a brick wall. We go toe to toe with any of them. And he was a skinny bloke. He wasn't imposing. He wasn't like a Vieira or even like a Roy Keane,
5'7".
Yeah, exactly. He was a little diminutive midfielder, really.
Yeah.
But he liked to put it about. He was one of those little terrier players, and I think sometimes that overshadowed how good he was as a footballer, because he had this sort of, particularly towards the latter end of his career, this sort of tendency to he was on the bench and you'd come on and you'd count how many seconds it was till he got a foul or a yellow card. And as I said, after Mark, he's got the most yellow cards. I think he's got 60 odd yellow cards. But then if I did the analysis, he'd probably have some incredible, the highest cards per game ratio ever at West Ham. So, no, I loved him. Absolutely loved him.
Real character. We don't have so many of them in the game anymore. It's a very sanitized version of football, and it's a bygone era. But, okay, so John Moncur is the first face, the first head that you are carving into your Mount Matty Rushmore. So we have 3 left from all the players, and don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, this guy that's sitting right here gets very up close and personal over the last. How long is it now, Russ? 20 years.
This is my 22nd season at West Ham.
Yeah. Well, my daughter we was talking a little bit earlier, and I said that I was having you on, and she sort of looked at me. She said, "Is he the guy that presses the buttons at London Stadium?" I went, "Yeah, that's him." That's him. She turned around and she said, "So can he put on any song he wants?" And I'm like, "Well, probably not any, There's probably some that are on the
yeah,
banned list.
with him, yeah, exactly. I mean, we famously did a thing a few seasons ago at London Stadium to sort of give it a bit more personality, where we'd ask the players to recommend like a soundtrack, like a playlist, and we'd play that when we were doing the players were doing the warm up. But the trouble was, it was either grime, which is just effing jeffing, or I think it was Arnie, it was Arnie's music. It was just this random South American music, which was just it's like, you know, could you just say upside your head or song two or so, you know, obviously not song that's Chelsea, but you know, just couldn't you just say something like that? But no, it was always like it was like, you know, this grime artist, and there's no, every version on Spotify has got a big E next to it because it's explicit, and yeah, you have to be a bit careful. I deliberately put that on my Spotify, you know, remove all explicit content. So hopefully you won't get anyone effing and jeffing. But to some extent, you can really sort of play anything really. Or obviously anything you do, you get, you know, a million people on Twitter will say, "Oh, he's playing that fucking song again," or I get Moose jumping at me, play a bit of Bruce Springs. That's his new thing now. Oh, literally, right. Every time I see him, gonna put a bit of Springsteen on, Russ, be a bit of the boss. Be like, no, but I have, just to shut him up sometimes.
But so. it must be that to actually get four people for the amount of time that you've been watching West Ham, both as in your current role within the club, and also before that as a fan growing up. It must have been a hell of a task. And I know you sort of like, you've centered on cult heroes, but even then you sort of think about, I'm going to name a couple that you could, that are not on your list, but say for instance, Carlos Tevez could probably fit into the, and he's not on the list, as I say, ladies and gentlemen. No. So you're not going to see Carlos Tevez on the Russ's Mount Rushmore, but
probably scare off people flying over, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Keep the kids away from the mantelpiece, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean,
it's true. I mean, it's true. Every sort of not decade, but every sort of generation has cult heroes. I could have put in Christian Daly. You know, I mean, you know, anyone who gets a song named after them, I think they are in the cult hero status, because I think it takes a certain. So I haven't put Ludo in there, you know, and we still sing I heard his song sang more at the Brighton game than I have done for ages. You know, so there must have been a real random pocket of old fans were together for the Brighton game, because all I heard was the Ludo "What's Your Name" song, you know, and I think, yeah, I mean, it's difficult. But also, it's difficult because obviously a lot of them I've interviewed as well. So it's like, I was thinking about doing like my 4 favourite interviews as my Mount Rushmore, but I thought that was a bit wanky. So, and actually, I don't think I could pick 4. And actually, if I'd picked 4 and I sent them to you last night, I'd had to change one because we interviewed Pedro Obiang the other day, and he's one of my favourite interviews now of all time. So it's like it would change. I thought cult heroes, and thought, you know, people who might not get picked because they deserve a mention. Anyone who wears a claret and blue shirt, doesn't matter if it's one game, if it's Neil Finn or Mark Noble, it don't matter. They've done what you and me have wanted to do for all of our lives. And that's when I interview them. That's what I always say to them. They go, "Oh, we should have played more games." So, mate, you know, you made 20 appearances. You know, people would have changed their whole life to do what you wanted to do for 1 minute, let alone
I'd have done it for 20 seconds, mate.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. You know, so and so, you know, for me, whether I could have put in Steve Lomas, could have put in Razor. Yeah. You know, you could literally go all the time. And but yeah, no, it was tricky. But I thought, you know, there's method in the madness.
Well, I think that the next player will get a seal of approval from a certain element of the West Ham fan base. Yeah. Talk to me about choice number 2 for your Mounts.
I alluded to it with John when I did the Monks as my first one. The second one is a man who made about 300 and something appearances. Similar, was it 7 years? No, 9 years again. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seasons again. 9 seasons again. And a man who I I've always had a real personal connection with, and it's Ian Bishop. Bish Bosh himself. There he goes in those lovely shorts. God,
a bit tight back then, wouldn't
he
they?
wouldn't mind going out, on a cold day in December. Look at the size of that one. Gee, I think that's a ruck. I think that's a shadow. Don't want to get happy Amaretto excited there, but yeah. But no, Bish is a man who, again, he was one of those players who wasn't from round these parts.
Yep.
But became a real folk hero, a cult hero. Bish did, and he obviously coming in, with under Macari, with in a swap deal with him and Morley for Waldy again. Could have put Waldy in, and I could put Trev in as well, Trev Morley, because I loved him. But Bish just epitomised sort of that sort of first era of West Ham for me. I probably started properly watching West Ham. My first game, I think, was 92-93 promotion season. I was a glory hunter, and Bish was always there. And Bish lived in Loughton. He lived around Buckinghamshire where I came from, so I'd see him, and so it was always. He wasn't the first player I met. The first player I met was Pete Butler, who I always love and I still love today. But he was one of the first ones. And funny enough, so back in the day, you used to have those children's programs where they used to do sort of like fly on the wall, hidden camera shows. And it was one, I can't remember what the actual show was called, but it was presented by a guy called Dave Benson Phillips.
I remember him.
Remember the big black guy, really friendly guy. And so my brother, me and my brother, Tom's 3 years younger than me. We went to West Ham, started going West Ham together and all that type of stuff. But he's 3 years younger. We went to the same school, secondary school. I was in sixth form. He was sort of, I don't know, year 9 or no, I wasn't, or something. Anyway, 3 years difference. He got set up by one of these TV promotion. I don't know how it worked out, but anyway, so he was doing his art class, and Dave Benson Phillips comes in and goes, where's Tom? And Tom's like, it's probably on YouTube somewhere. And he goes, so you think yourself a bit of a footballer when you're a West Ham fan? Who's this? And Ian Bishop turns up, and he went, oh my God, it's Ian Bishop. Then he went to the playground and was playing football with Ian Bishop, me and him and Tom, for 2 or 3 hours, just kicking the ball about, talking about what it's like to be West Ham, and he still remembers that to that day because when we chat, and I love the fact he does. He might not, but I love the fact that he, even if he pretends to, it sort of keeps that sort of bit of memory. That's that sort of memory in my psyche. But no, I loved Bish. I love Bish again. Silky player, very silky player, skillful player, but could put it about a bit as well. I always sort of define West Ham players in terms of fans' favourites into two sort of camps. You've got the Trevor Brooking players, the silky players, and then you've got the Billy Bonds players, sort of the hard players. And to be honest, Bish and Monks sort of were in the middle a little bit.
Hybrid.
And I think that's why they really took them to the hearts. And even now, when we have Bish on the channel or whatever, everyone wants to come and have a chat. I love him.
Yeah.
I love him.
Well, as a West Ham fan growing up that witnessed his career unfold before your eyes, what if I had to sort of say to you his best performance or his standout moment in a claret and blue shirt, what would be your answer to that?
I think in terms of my memories, it's very much with Monks in that sort of midfield too. So I don't remember. I can't, and I remember literally there was. I think he scored. He didn't score many. I think he scored.
16 goals I've got here,
something like that. Yeah, and then I think it was a goal against Derby. I want to say. Sort of like the 96 era. So really when him and Monks were firing all cylinders.
I think I might remember that if it's the game I'm thinking.
I think so. There's certain moments. He loved a long shot.
Yep.
And we like players who score goals with long shots. And no, I just remember he rarely gave the ball away. It was a safe pair of hands. And as I said, him and Monks as a pairing were quite, they held their own in a
Yeah.
Premier League which was dominated by combative, very physical midfielders at that time.
Yeah.
And he did a great service for us again. Over 300 appearances for the club, and again, running under different managers as well. Macari and Bonds, and then Redknapp. And would feature regularly in under all those managers, so to speak. But no, I love Bish Bosh.
Yeah, I think, my reading of, and you sort of say about they were both hybrids. I think probably my viewpoint on both Monks and Bish. I think Monks in his time at West Ham, and I hope that he doesn't get offended by what I'm about to say, but I think Monks was more a sort of like a hard-edged player, but had the silky side to his game, whereas Bish was slightly the opposite. He was the silky player, but had the hard edge to him. Does that is that a fair sort of assessment of them?
Yeah, it's coming from different angles and they end up at the same spot, really, don't they?
Yeah.
But, no, I agree. I think Monks was always sort of would put his foot in and would be that. But yeah, you're right. I think starting off with Bish was very much, a very silky player, maybe ahead of his time. You think someone like Bish in today's world would be incredible because he was, great range. He'd fit into most sides. In the way he played. Could drop a shoulder and beat a man quickly. It wasn't the quickest player, but he had enough skill. Could spray a pass, which is pretty much the norm now for most midfielders. The only what I liked about Bish again was, like, in terms of the cult hero status, was they used to call him Polo because he'd always have a pack of polos in his pocket in case Harry or Billy walked past and he'd been out on the piss the night before.
Really?
Yeah, but apparently it was extra strong mints, he told me. But that was what that's what I think Wardy said. I used to call him Polo. No, it wasn't Wardy because he wasn't playing for the time. Might be Monks called him Polo or Morley called him Polo or something like that. But it was the mint, and obviously then you got the whole thing with Morley and that scandal, and we love a scandal, and whatever happened, and it's just it was just a funny time. I think Bish tells a story of, I think it was Potts's testimonial year, and basically Steve never got really drunk or anything like that, and he got him absolutely wasted at his testimonial dinner, and he sort of fell down the stairs, and he was just a lad, weren't he? He's a lad, you could easily see him in the pub, and that they were relatable. Now, as you said, it's a bit sad. It's not sanitized. I think they're scared to do anything because with social media and stuff.
Yeah,
Christ,
different world.
They did have mobile phones then, and Harry would let them all go out on the piss on a Tuesday night. And you couldn't do that now.
No.
And I remember interviewing Sinks, and he said the same thing. We'd all go out on the piss on it'd be Tuesday club. And Razor said that, we used to, because of that, I wouldn't go for a beer on a Saturday or Sunday because I don't really believe he said that. But anyway, that's what he said to me. But because he knew he was going to go out for a beer on a Tuesday. Just a different world. You'd see him down Romford or you'd see him in Loughton, and, it was just that whole side, I remember famously seeing Paul Kitson walking out of Woolworths with the biggest bag of pick and mix you've ever seen, and great.
Probably explains why he was always bloody injured.
Just this huge.
Sorry, Paul. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, Paul. You're probably watching. But yeah, Paul Kitson out Loughton with a big bag of pick and mix. It sounds like something Alan Partridge would say, but it was true.
Wow.
Love it.
And just one other sort of memory I've got of Ian Bishop was, it's the obvious one. You looked at him, and the first thing that stood out was his barnet.
Yeah.
It's the first thing that you sort of looked at and went, well, maybe he needs a haircut, but he didn't give a shit.
It was that period, wasn't it, where it's like, you look at, I remember joking with Morley about the amount of haircuts he had. He had long hair, short hair, moustache, but like Bish always had that long hair, really. And, it was, you had likes of Chris Waddle and people like that had that long hair, and he stood out a bit at West Ham because I don't think anyone else had long hair. Or Morley did for a little bit, but not for the full 9 years. Bish had the full hair. Absolutely loved him, and obviously he's having he's over in the States, lives in the States now, and yeah, great man.
Yeah. So Number 2 head has been adorned onto your Mount's Matty Rushmore. So we're halfway through. We got 2 left to carve into this particular cliff face. So talk to me about your third choice, Russ.
So we're going to go a little bit more into recenter times. So obviously the first 2 are around sort of the early to late 90s. We're moving into sort of the mid 2000s, and the first one is a man who, and I love a boomerang player. I call them boomerang player when they go and come back. So whether it's this man Yoshi Benayoun, the guy we're going to talk about after this guy as well. And
Tony Cottee
McAvenny, you know, we do love a boomerang player. Sometimes a second when they come back, Julian Dix, you know, sometimes when the boomerang comes back, it's not as good as when you threw it. But with this man, I think he came back a lot better than he left. I don't really remember him at the first bit, but I remember him coming back because he made such an impression, and that's Mr. Ginger Pele. Mr. James Collins. You know, over 220 odd appearances, probably, you know, half a dozen goals, something like that. You know, across 10, 12, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 seasons on and off at West Ham. And he, again, not from round these parts, but a man who just got what it was to be a West Ham fan, a man who would go to away games if he wasn't in the squad, or even after he left, would be in the crowd for Arsenal away or whatnot. He'd always be in the crowd. Man who still lives around here, you know, still lives around the area, despite being, you know, a Cardiff boy. And, you know, a man who's always, you know, when he's not doing anything on the, you know, on Sky or whatever, he's literally always there with his family. I always see him on the stadium with his family. He sits in the bit that I sort of wander down and find myself a seat. He's there every game, and he hasn't played for us for 4 seasons. You know what I mean? 4 or 5 seasons. I absolutely love him. He epitomises what a centre half, and I think that's why we sort of the fans took a little bit to Craig Dawson in that respect, because he was Ginger he wasn't going to put a beautiful 40-yard pass on someone's toe. He was just going to put his body on the line, and that's what West Ham fans love. He'd bleed claret already, but he'd bleed claret and blue, and not the Aston Villa blue, claret and blue, but the West Ham claret and blue. Obviously, he left and came back, and I think actually leaving for Villa made him the player he was, because then he was obviously with someone like Richard Dunn. And Richard Dunn's a very similar player to how Ginger came back. No nonsense, just a blocker. And I thought he was, you know, he epitomised West Ham, you know, in terms of would just bleed for us. And that's what we would do as fans. We'd work exactly the same way. We would, until our last breath was out of our body, we'd still go if we were playing for West Ham. And he was the same. And obviously, you know, Welsh international as well. And yeah, I love him. I think he's absolutely brilliant. And yeah, it was a travesty we never got the testimonial.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I thought.
What are your feelings?
Well, I mean, you know, he's gone on. I mean, it was. I think sentimental stuff doesn't really happen in football anymore now. It didn't happen before. Remember, look at someone like Potsy. You know, he didn't get that last game to give him the full 500. He finished. Yeah. So. And it happened with Billy Bonds as well. He finished on 799 rather than 800. And you know, you've never, you know, and I respect that, because actually it's about when. And same as like Mark retiring as well. The same thing. You know, it's like, you know, he wouldn't have started the game, but he gets minutes if and when required. And I sort of understand that. But I think at a time when we needed, you know, it wasn't the greatest time when he came to the end of his career at West Ham in terms of us as a fan base. It may have just given you know, a little bit of a boost, but you know, it happens, and hindsight's a great thing. But no, I just thought he was great. I adored Ginge, and I still do. Lovely man.
Yeah, I'm in the camp that I know that he didn't do 10 years service in a continual chunk, and it was spread over 2 spells, one of 4 years and one of 6, there or thereabouts. But I just thought for the service that he gave to the club, in my humble opinion, and I'm just an average Joe fan, I think he should have got some sort of recognition for that service.
Same thing as Winston Reid as well, in all honesty.
Yes. Yeah.
But I just think it's one of those things, I think, where we, obviously we've been fortunate to interview lots of people, and I think we interviewed Gailey, and Gailey had I think he was at the club for 13 years or 12 years, something like that. Every year bar one was a testimonial year. So it was literally every year it was someone's testimonial year when he was there. And the likes of Mark Noble, obviously that will never happen again. And I think, where there was an opportunity, you don't really get testimonials anymore now. Apart from Mark Noble, I think I remember Gary Neville's one. And that's about it. And maybe Jamie Carragher's one. But that's it. And I think actually it would have been nice to do something, because they don't need the money. It's not where it was all about money, for the players in their retirement. They don't need that now. No. But you're right.
I think Ginge would have probably donated. I'm not sort of, but I think he'd have probably given it to a charity, a local charity, exactly. Maybe sort of like a charity in his native Cardiff.
Exactly, and same with Mark. Mark obviously didn't take any money for it. But it gives people an opportunity to say thank you for their service. And it was a shame. But these things happen, innit? These things do happen, and there's not really much we can do about it, unfortunately. Apart from every time you see him, people always say, I see people walk up to him and shake his hand, and that's what you can really do, really. Seeing it, really. To be fair,
I think the thing that, and this is always what I don't know if you feel the same way about it as I do, but I'm sure you probably do, is that all we as West Ham fans want to see a player do is leave everything they've got on the pitch.
Yeah.
That's all we expect, is someone to go out there, wear the colours with a little bit of pride, and go out there and really, give everything they've got, blood, sweat, tears, determination, leave it all on the pitch. And James Collins did that with aplomb, I think it's fair to say.
It's not hard to win over West Ham fans, despite what people say. If you're not talented enough, that's not your problem. That isn't your problem. If you're not talented enough, you've been picked by the manager, you've been bought by the manager. As long as you're trying, I think people forgive the fact that you might not be the most skillful person in the world. James Collins was not a skillful player.
No,
he wasn't. But he tried. And I think that's the issue we're having at the moment, is it doesn't look like people are trying. That's not saying of course they're trying, because actually they're professional players and it's their job, but it's the perception of the fans. And I think he was someone who epitomised that, and as he said, he'd get his head cut, and he came back with the shaven head and the big beard, he looked like a Viking, but he was just exceptional. In terms of his service to West Ham and his commitment to West Ham. That's why he's on the older Mount Matty Rushmore.
The Ginger Pele is number 3 of the 4 spaces. So we come to the 4th and final choice. I dare say you were racking your brains, weren't you, with this last one?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, to be honest, he was probably, in a weird way, he was probably one of my first names on there. Because for the modern day fan, he probably is the cult hero, I would say, because, as I said, I love a boomerang player. This guy boomeranged several times and came back, and we let him go and re-signed him, and didn't take the hint, but then came back and helped us out. And obviously now he's coaching. He seems to be doing all the bloody player interviews, every bloody guy we sign, and he has several memes. For being over chuffed and his steamy head, and it's Colton Cole. It's Colton
Cole. There he is.
Colton Cole. And again,
2 spells at the club, literally back to back.
He's played about 300 games for us.
Yeah.
I think something like that. I think he's got like 180 odd starts. I think he's got about 100 and something sub appearances. He scored 60, 70 goals, something like that as well. And we talked about, how it's not hard. It's not hard to win over the fans if you try.
Yes.
Now, this man would be within a blink of an eye. And I remember a Tottenham game where he was prime Ronaldo R9, and then within the space of a minute, he was the joke. He was like a kid on a. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. He was Savio the next minute, the next breath, and he would do some sublime skills.
Yeah, and
then he'd just like trip over his own feet.
Yeah,
and we called him can't control, but he always gave a go. He always had a go. Do you know what I mean? He never stopped. He wasn't the most skillful player. He got an England cap as well. He got two England caps. 7. Wow. I think he got 2 in his time at West Ham, I think. He scored within something like 20 seconds of his debut. Mm-hmm. And he's got time for everyone. His Twitter game is brilliant. He's always on Twitter. He's always responding. I've had him on the channel. I think he's fantastic. Really honest. And he scored the goal which took us up in the playoff final as well.
He did.
And we
also scored another goal. Was it a couple of seasons earlier? Although it was a team goal. It was a goal that I remember watching, and he was the goal scorer. But this goal away at Wigan, do you remember it?
Yeah.
The ball was getting zipped around here, there, and everywhere. It was total football, and Carlton Cole was on the end of it and just swept the ball past the goalkeeper who couldn't do anything.
Didn't that win goal of the month for West Ham's goal of the month? I think that year for that game, because it was total football. Yeah, you can score a 30-yarder banger, or you can do this really intricate team goal. But he always gave it. He always had it. He always had a go. And obviously coming from Chelsea. And obviously the likes of Zola taking him under his wing, and he's again played under different managers, but they've always picked him. He's always got game time. Throughout his career, I think apart from maybe the last couple of seasons in the Premier League, he's always done 20-30 games at least a season. There's a reason for that, and Big Sam put him in his side, and as I said, scored the goal. And we had a great chat about that when we interviewed him, because Flo was due that day, and I
played under 5 managers, didn't he?
Yeah, he would have been.
Ardew, Kirbishley, Zola, Grant, Allardyce.
Yeah.
And I've just checked.
They all played him.
I've just checked. All 7 of his caps came in claret and blue shirt.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, he was at West Ham for all of them. But I remember, this is how old I am, ladies and gentlemen. I remember sort of like the early 2000s. I remember when Carlton Cole was first breaking through at Chelsea, and I remember the then Chelsea manager Claudio Ranieri described him in the media as his young lion. Yeah. And whilst I can understand when you look now back on his career, and specifically when he was at West Ham, and you could turn around and look at his goals per game ratio, and it's not exactly Shearer-esque. But as you say, the one thing that you can never, ever, ever lay at the feet of Carlton Cole is the accusation that he, at the very least, didn't come off the pitch looking like he'd put a shift in.
Yeah. And he was, and then as I said, he had those moments of clarity, those moments of brilliance where you're thinking, why the fuck have you not done that before?
Yeah,
and it's because I don't think he knew how he did it. Do you know what I mean? And then he would just have this incredible. He was just such a funny player. And we called him Can't Control. And we used to have the old. We didn't have it when he was playing. I don't know if we didn't have it when he was playing, but we used to have that little on the graphic on the big screens at Upton Park. We used to have the little clown thing jiggle when someone would do a really shit shot, and Carlton, if we still had that, Carlton would have probably had it pretty much once every couple of games. But then once every quarter game, he'd have an absolute stormer. Yeah, an absolute stormer. And no, I thought he was a great ambassador to the club. He wasn't the best player on the pitch. didn't claim to be the best player on the pitch, but as you said, would come off the pitch having sweated buckets, and we'd appreciate that. We love someone running after a pointless ball.
Yep.
Someone who runs, there's a bit of point, and Antonio does that occasionally.
Down the keeper.
Yeah, there's a bit of pointless running, and maybe the keeper fucks up the shot, maybe he doesn't, maybe he gets it, but we still applaud the effort. Yeah. That was what Colton did.
Yep. Yeah, very, very underrated player by some, I think. And as you say, even now he's working at the club in a coaching capacity. He does a lot of interviews, as you say, with incoming players. And yeah, again, he's not someone that came, as you say, from this manor. Obviously not as far away as sort of like players like Pablo Fornals and whatever, but you know, he gets the club, he gets the fans, he knows what we want, and yeah, the guy comes across really well in all the interviews I've seen of him, and he clearly loves the club.
Yeah, he clearly loves the club, and you know, he's, you know, as I said, he started as a Chelsea boy, worked his way to the first team as a Chelsea boy, but I think he found himself at West Ham, and as the fact that, you know, he's gone away, he's come back. We let him go. He came back. He did a Davy Moyes. Came back despite the fact we let him go. And I respect that fact, you know, maybe because you couldn't get a game anywhere else, but don't matter. You know, it's you know, he gave his all on the pitch. And again, that's all we ask of some of players. You know, again, he's not, as he weren't the most technical, gifted player in the world, but he gave it a go. He gave it a go. And that's what we like as West Ham fans.
Absolutely.
Giving it a go.
So, Russ, you have gone out with your hammer and chisel. You've been very diligent. You've been at the side of this mountain, and you have chipped away at it, and you have formed in the face of this mountain 4 heads, and this is what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen.
Looks great.
Ain't bad. I'll tell you what, that's a good bit of stonemasonry. That old stuff.
It is, and the way you can, obviously polish Gingy's head as well. It's a bit of a trip hazard, but. It doesn't
health and safety.
Always thinking.
You did wear your hard hat and steel toe caps and your high vis when you was doing this little bit. Of course,
past good. All those. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Because you don't want anything to go wrong on this channel, if you don't mind.
No.
So, Russ, we are at the end of the pilot episode, if you will, of Mount Matty Rushmore.
There we go.
And I have to reference this. I'm going to embarrass you, Russ, and I hope you can accept this in the spirit of what it's given. Ladies and gentlemen, the name of this concept I was struggling with. This man sitting next to me, he came up with it, and I went, yeah, that works. So I've got to give you credit for that one, me old mate.
Well, it was a joint effort. We took a bit. I think, you know, it was. I thought it was important you had something to do with West Ham in that title, and it made sense. But yeah, we need to get. I was thinking about Mint Matty Rushmore, as in Scott Minto, but I think we'll keep the mount to itself. But there we go.
Fair. Well, hopefully you won't be the last guest on this particular concept. Hopefully this will be something that is very much like your excellent My Hammers 11, where you'll get ex-players, celebrity fans phoning me up, DMing me on Twitter, whatever, and saying, get me on.
Oh,
maybe you'll be the first and last.
It's a living nightmare, but hopefully because we've given, because, you know, I didn't want to go down the obvious route. It gives people a bit more, maybe, you know, it just opens up a little bit for people as well. So yeah, that's the general idea.
Absolutely. Well, Russ, I thank you very much indeed for your time and your effort on this. I'm going to finish as I started and then try and encourage you guys that are watching to give the Iron Supporting Food Bank a bit of a push along. Again, this, if you're not sure what this is all about, ladies and gentlemen, this is a charity that operates in the Newham Borough area, the borough in which West Ham United operate, and they're doing an awful lot of good work in the community to help families who are struggling in this cost of living crisis to put food on the table. Now, maybe you and I, the dear viewer, are watching, are sort of like having a little bit of a pinch at the moment, but these are families that are really, really struggling in a way that maybe you can't comprehend. So if you're able to put your hand in your pocket and chuck a few bob in the tin No donation is too small. These families will appreciate it, and we thank you very much indeed for your consideration in this matter. And please also consider liking this stream, commenting on it, and sharing it to your social media platforms. Subscribing to our YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. Make sure you hit that bell icon, and you'll be notified of any new content as and when we upload it to the channel. And Russ, I will finish by just saying one thing and one thing only to you. What are we? We
are massive. We still are massive.
Absolutely. Come on, you irons.
Irons.